Well, welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. Terry's back with us. And Terry, you've been traveling the world. Tell me what you've been doing. You've been in Spain?
Spain and Amsterdam. I know you have a heart for the work that we're doing in Spain. Orphans Promise is involved in anti-trafficking projects there. It's the second or third most trafficked country in Europe.
Spain? Why?
You know, I don't know if it's because of its location. I'm not sure what it is that contributes to it, but I'm told 1 million women and children a day are used by men in some capacity every single day.
I mean, in Spain alone?
In Spain alone. Yeah.
Good grief. Well, it must be intense poverty. Is it? What is
Well, there is poverty. You know, I met girls in the programs that we help support there from Nigeria, from Venezuela, from Romania, who had all been brought with the promise of work and then stranded there in stories that we've all heard.
We don't think of Spain as being a center of this. This is terrible.
No, but we are connected with the powerful church in Madrid, the International Church of Madrid, and what amazing work, rescue houses and bakeries and just opportunities with the children of women who are going through this, or some of them refugee children, just to see the life that Christ brings and makes a difference. Well,
you're also in Amsterdam, because I've been there. That red light district is something else.
Well, it is something else. And in some of these countries, you know, prostitution is legal. So it's a very weird, fine line. But there's behind-the-scenes work going on, kingdom work that's awesome.
Glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Well, folks, let's get into the news here. Authorities are investigating a number of suspected bombs sent to the media and Democratic politicians, including 2 former presidents. And there might be more of that to come.
Well, this morning, similar packages were sent to Vice President Joe Biden and actor Robert De Niro. As Eric Rosales reports, the nation's security agencies are on full alert.
The full-scale investigation intensifies, involving the FBI, Homeland Security, and the Secret Service. Right now, investigators are combing over the devices as President Trump condemned the attempted attacks.
The full weight of our government is being deployed to conduct this investigation and bring those responsible for these despicable acts to justice. We will spare no resources or expense in this effort.
It was chaos and confusion outside New York's Time Warner building, home to CNN, after a suspected explosive device addressed to former CIA director and critic of President Trump, John Brennan, was found in the building's mailroom. After evacuating the building, the NYPD bomb squad responded and safely removed it. Retired FBI explosive expert Tom Thurman says investigators will now scour the bombs for clues.
Wires, batteries, battery holders, switch, how the device was meant to explode.
The suspicious package was the latest in a series over the last few days. On Monday, a device was found in the mailbox of a home owned by billionaire political activist George Soros. Late Tuesday night, the Secret Service intercepted a package addressed to Hillary Clinton at her home in Westchester County, New York. Then on Wednesday morning, another device was sent to former President Barack Obama's home in Washington, D.C.
This is the world we live in. Terrorism, the attempt to spread fear, is the world that we live in.
All this comes as the nation's political discourse becomes more heated and the divisions deeper. Steve Scalise was the victim of a shooting by a Bernie Sanders supporter who opened fire on Republicans at an early morning congressional baseball practice.
We all have, our disagreements. You should never make those personal, and you should never think that violence is a way to settle our political differences. We settle them at the ballot box.
The president addressing the deep political divide in the country, seeking to tone down the discourse.
Those engaged in the political arena must stop treating political opponents as being morally defective. We should not mob people in public spaces.
But CNN's President Jeff Zucker suggested Trump is part of the problem, writing, "There is a total and complete lack of understanding at the White House about the seriousness of their continued attacks on the media." Suspicious packages were also sent to former Attorney General Eric Holder and Representative Maxine Waters' office. Authorities warn additional packages could have been sent to other locations. Eric Rosales, CBN News, Washington.
You know, what I want to see is somebody explode one of those things. There's some thought that these things actually won't go off. They won't explode. And, So is it merely terrorism? I mean, they aren't really trying to explode something and hurt people? I'd like to see, you know, that bomb squad. I mean, I know they're going to take them apart and look at them, but somewhere in one of those containment areas, they ought to explode one if possible, just to see if it does explode. And I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Well, you'd also like to see the call to civility come from both sides of the fence. I mean, it's not because one person has said something.
Maxine Waters said, when you see Republicans get in their face and scream at them, I mean, we've had mobs of people. I mean, there were those paid by a Soros affiliate down in Washington screaming at Jeff Flake during those Kavanaugh hearings. I mean, these women were plants. They were paid operatives of Soros organization screaming at a senator and claiming, you know, they were victims of sex and all this stuff. I mean, it was just, you know, a setup. Well, Vice President Mike Pence condemned threats of political violence at a campaign event at Regent University Wednesday. John Jessup has more on that.
That's right, Pat. The vice president was at Regent stumping for a local congressional candidate. And with less than 2 weeks until Election Day, the president and vice president are working hard to help the GOP keep its majority in Congress. Abigail Robertson brings us more.
Republican incumbent Scott Taylor hopes a ringing endorsement from the vice president will give him the last-minute boost he needs to beat Democratic opponent Elaine Luria and keep his seat in the House.
Virginia and America need Scott Taylor back.
Pence opened his speech at Regent University condemning the suspicious packages sent to multiple Democratic leaders like former President Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton.
As the president said, acts or threats of political violence of any kind have no place in the United States of America.
He also reminded the crowd about the importance of prayer at this time.
If you bow the head and bend the knee in the next 13 days, just pray for America. Pray for all people.
Taylor said he was honored the vice president reached out to campaign for him and told CBN News even though his race is tight, he feels confident he'll be heading back to Washington.
I think tonight was a huge statement of force that shows that we have tremendous support and momentum going into the Election Day, so I feel great about it.
Taylor's seat is one of many Republicans can't afford to lose if they want to keep their House majority. Reporting from Regent University, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Thanks, Abby. Pat, back to you.
Well, I had the privilege of spending a nice time with the vice president, and I'm so impressed with his demeanor. He has grown in office. He is a fantastic public service, and he's a warm supporter of the president, but nevertheless, he's developing as I say, a tremendous persona, and he is very cognizant of what's going on. We went through the list of the Senate. You know, he named a number of Senate seats that are in play. He doesn't think the Republicans will lose any. We didn't mention Nevada, but certainly not Arizona or Tennessee. And then we went down the list with him about these Senate seats. And he didn't add it up, but I've added it up. And if you look at his math of the ones that he thinks are very much in play and winnable by the Republicans, we might be seeing a Senate majority for the Republicans of an additional 4 to 5 seats, not 2, not 1, but 4 to 5. And he named a whole lot of states, and I won't go into all those in this program, but nevertheless, when you add those together, and he didn't do the math that I have, there might be a net gain as many as 5 seats in the Senate, certainly more than the 2 they've been talking about. But this will mean a huge boost for the president in getting his cabinet approved, getting his under-cabinet members approved, and certainly a whole bunch of judges. I think they're going to have what's known as a rump session after this election is over, and they'll come back into session. Mitch McConnell is going to put them through so they can approve a whole lot of more judges. And this is going to be one of the lasting legacies of President Trump. So it's a big deal. And, if the vice president is right, and I have a feeling that his polling is pretty good, after the day after election, the Republicans are going to be very happy with what's happening in the Senate. We did not discuss the House races, and but it looks like that blue wave is diminishing. And and speaking of waves, before I get into this other, the strongest wind event ever to hit an American soil is building in the Pacific. It's called Hutu or Hulu. It's sustains winds up to 180, 190 miles an hour in Tinian and Saipan. Huge. Have you seen about that?
Well, I watched it on the plane on the way home.
Did you?
Coming right between Guam and
yeah,
really damaging.
The most intense ever to hit, and because they're considered part of America now, the American soil. Well, John, let's talk about that caravan.
Well, Pat, the migrant caravan headed here to the United States is starting to weaken. Tired, hungry, and sick, some are deciding to return home, but about 5,000 people are pressing on. Some here in America are asking questions about who they are. CBN News contributing correspondent Chuck Holton went to check it out. He caught up with the caravan in the Mexican city of Tapachula.
All right, so I want to try to clarify some of what you've been hearing in the news media about this caravan moving north into the United States. First of all, the people in this caravan are not being paid to join the caravan. Their payoff comes when they get to the U.S. They are, however, being facilitated and enabled by groups like the UN, other NGOs, and by church groups who are feeding them and providing them support on their journey north. Now, the other questions have been, are there felons, are there bad guys in this group? And I can tell you, it didn't take me long to find 4 or 5 right away who are absolute felons that are coming north to try to get back into the United States. Here's one of them.
Ha visitado, sí.
¿Cuántas veces?
4.
4 veces. Pero ¿cuánto tiempo ha pasado adentro de los Estados Unidos?
A veces 2 meses, a veces
2 meses.
Sí, a veces 1 mes. Así.
No mucho.
Sí, no mucho presos ahí. Ahí en los centros de detención.
Now, the other issue that we're seeing is people are asking about whether or not there are what you would call exotics, that is, people who are not from Central America that are joining this caravan. And let me just show you what I found a few minutes ago. Hey, Somalia! ¿Cómo están? ¿Todo bien? ¿Cuándo van a salir?
No Spanish.
Oh, no speak Spanish.
I speak English.
English. When are you going to the United States?
I don't know. When I have a chance, maybe a week, day.
What are you waiting for?
We want to take some rest, we tired from the road.
I'm sorry, what?
We want to take some rest,
Oh, you want to rest a little bit. Where did you start?
I started probably Brazil,
Oh, you went all the way to Brazil and came up from Brazil. Did you walk through the Darien?
There's some road we must walk, to cross it by walk.
Now, lastly, it bears pointing out that there are some people who are saying, this is too difficult, it's too hard, and I want to go home. And I found 2 people like that yesterday and actually helped them get back to the border of Guatemala. Take a look at what they had to say.
Look, it was really hard. There are lots of people in the group, some good, some bad. While we were all sleeping together, someone took my phone. I decided to go back because of my daughter. Carrying her while we walked, I became so tired, and the sun and everything affected us both a lot. My dream has always been to go to the United States, because it's so beautiful, to work and improve the lives of me and my family, and more than anything to give my daughter a better future.
A lot more people would probably choose to go back home if it wasn't being made easier to get to the United States by a lot of well-meaning groups who are helping these migrants. And we can know one thing for sure, and that is that there will be a lot more caravans behind this one because everybody is ready to take advantage of the infrastructure being created by this caravan. And so we have to think hard about how we're going to help these people, but also help ourselves. I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News from Tapachula, Mexico.
Thanks, Chuck, for that inside look at the caravan. Pat, back to you.
It's fascinating. They say, though, that they come in and they ask, why are you coming? Well, I want a job. I want better work. I don't have enough work. Well, that isn't the reason to come in. So they're given papers which have exactly what they're supposed to say in order to beat the system. So they get these papers and they read them out and they say, oh, I'm coming because I've been persecuted. You know, the vice chairman of the Army of Honduras was here a few weeks ago. He found the Lord watching the 700 Club. He's a dedicated Christian. These aren't a bunch of monsters persecuting poor people. It just doesn't happen that way. And certainly in Guatemala, they've got, but now there's another caravan forming in Guatemala, and they want to overcome our borders. These people are being set up and financed by an organization there they call Libre. There are others that are radicals who have organized before, and they want to test and bring chaos. That's their mission, to bring chaos. And we can't let them do it. But I just believe that as they get closer to the border, we need to have at least a United States Army division down there. They want lots of troops, but we don't want them shooting people. But they want them restraining people, and they need to be put in buses and taken right back to Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, wherever they came from. If they came all the way up from Brazil, that's tough luck. We can't go down there. But nevertheless, it's got to be stopped. We cannot allow our borders to be invaded this way, and this is clearly a setup. But it's hurting whoever thought it up. They thought they would embarrass Trump. But what is happening is it's embarrassing the Democrats and emboldening Republicans to go out and vote. So, Terry,
well,
next.
I also think that when people saw that 600 were processed at the Mexican border and thousands broke down their walls and pushed through, people began to realize this is not an orderly crowd coming our way.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
And we can't allow our borders to be breached by it. We just can't do it. And you have all these Democrats who are saying, we must defend Barack Obama, Chuck Schumer, various ones saying we cannot allow our borders to be breached. Well, that's the way it is. All right.